Probably only one who will tolerate your smug ass.
Absolutely everything, 24 hours a day. You know, you thought of nothing else. Worked from literally 5 in the morning till, 12 midnight, 3 in the morning. I gave it all I had.
Angela Bassett just dropped a bombshell, and nobody saw it coming. Her darkest truth has finally come to light, and it's way deeper than what fans ever imagined. Back when she filmed What's Love Got to Do With It, the pressure was wild. We're talking 17-hour workdays, scene after scene of raw emotion, and the real Tina Turner sitting right there watching her every move like a hawk.
Oh, I love you, baby, 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 baby.
That's pressure no one's ready for, not even a Hollywood queen. Then came the Oscars and the heartbreak, snubbed in the 90s, snubbed again in 2023. Cameras caught her face, but not the pain behind that look.
Two.
Jamie Lee.
Nobody knew what she was holding in. And while she was chasing greatness, her own kids were getting shut out in preschool, all because of their skin color. No amount of fame could protect them. That pain hit harder than any role ever could. But here's the twist. This pain didn't start in Hollywood. It started long before. Angela was born in New York City in 1958, but she never got to grow up there. Angela was barely 10 months old when everything changed. Her parents split, and just like that, her mom handed her off to an aunt and uncle down in Florida. No warning, no goodbye, just gone. From that moment, Angela grew up in a house where love had rules. Real cold rules. Her aunt took care of her, yeah, but reminded her all the time, this ain't your home for real. She looked Angela dead in the eyes and said, I'm not your mommy. You have a mommy. Imagine hearing that as a baby, just wanting a little love. There was no comfort, no softness, just lines that never blurred, and the message was clear. She didn't truly belong. That need for a mother never left her. It followed her as she grew, and then out of nowhere, the phone rang. She picked it up and heard a stranger say, Hi, Angela. This is your mommy. I'm coming to get you. She was stunned. What was she even supposed to feel? That reunion didn't heal her. It just brought a whole new set of struggles. Angela would later call those years some of the hardest ever. Her mom, Betty Jane, had big expectations. Everything had to be sharp, and how you walked, talked, dressed. It was all about appearances.
My mother, Betty Jane, she was very strong-willed, determined, simple woman. She had high expectations for her 2 daughters, single mom.
But behind all those high standards, there was a chill, a coldness that never really left. Years later, friends and co-workers told Angela, you must have had a critical mother because the way she pushed herself, it was intense. But what they didn't see was how deep that voice of judgment ran. It was buried inside her since childhood. At 15, Angela finally found a way to speak in secret. She started keeping a diary. It was her escape, her only safe space. In that little notebook, she could say the things she wasn't allowed to say out loud at home. For a girl who'd been passed around like luggage and kept questioning where she fit in, those quiet pages were the first time she felt real. Then came a school trip to Washington, D.C., and everything changed. She ended up in a theater watching Of Mice and Men. James Earl Jones was on that stage, and Angela couldn't move. Long after the crowd left, she stayed frozen in her seat, tears rolling down her face. That night hit different. That performance didn't fix her pain, but it showed her something. It proved that pain could mean something. That expression was power. It wasn't therapy, but it was the first step towards something bigger. Angela kept all this locked up for years. In interviews, she gave polished, tight answers, never too much, never too personal. She carried herself with grace, but behind those fierce looks and red carpet smiles, there were scars that never really healed. It wasn't just the family split. It wasn't just getting passed around from one house to another. It was the chaos of never knowing her place, not knowing who she truly belonged to or what she meant to the people around her. That kind of confusion sticks with you. And when the lights came on and the cameras rolled, that little girl was still there, quiet, hidden, but very real. The world saw the powerhouse, the queen, the woman who could dominate any screen. But deep down, she was still the same girl who didn't know if she should call her aunt mom or believe a stranger who said, "I'm your mother now." Angela didn't just act, she survived. Before she ever stepped onto a film set, she had already taken on the toughest role there is, learning how to hold it together in a world that kept pulling her apart. Angela Bassett didn't fall into acting, she fought her way into it. She held on to acting like it was the only thing keeping her afloat, because in a way it was. After a childhood full of confusion, rejection, and silence, performing gave Angela something she never had before: control. On stage, she wasn't anyone's burden. She wasn't someone's responsibility or someone's problem. She wasn't just the daughter or the girl caught between adults. In theater, she called the shots. She could become whoever she wanted. And for the first time, people actually saw her. It all started back in high school during that trip to Washington, D.C. She sat in that dark theater watching James Earl Jones in Of Mice and Men, and something cracked open inside her. After the final bow, everyone else walked out. But Angela? She just sat there, stuck in her seat, crying soft and steady in the dark. That wasn't just a performance, it was a full-body release. For someone who'd been keeping everything locked inside, that moment showed her it was okay to feel. And more than that, it was okay to show it. By the time she graduated, Angela wasn't chasing some basic 9-to-5. She wanted more, way more. But there was just one problem. Her mom had strict rules, and playing it safe was one of them. For Angela, education wasn't optional. It was the foundation. She respected her mother's rules and followed through, enrolling at Yale and majoring in African American studies. But fate had something else waiting. One elective drama class flipped everything. That spark she felt back in high school, it exploded into full-blown fire. The classroom turned into her stage, and in that moment, everything clicked. This wasn't just a passion, this was purpose. Angela doubled down and took it further. She went after her Master of Fine Arts at the elite Yale School of Drama, one of the toughest programs in the country. And she wasn't just any student there. She was one of the very few Black women in the entire program. The odds were stacked, but she didn't flinch. She trained under Lloyd Richards, a legend in the theater world, but he wasn't just teaching lines, he was teaching survival. He looked at Angela and said she didn't need to perform to impress, she had to perform to connect. That hit deep, and it stuck. While others chased quick gigs and sitcom paychecks, Angela moved differently. She turned down roles that made Black women look flat, foolish, or weak. She knew exactly how media shaped perception. She understood what it meant to be watched by millions, and she refused to let the spotlight define her worth. She wasn't just chasing fame, she was shaping legacy. That early discipline, it became her armor. By the time Angela hit Hollywood, the doors weren't wide open, they were barely cracked. She wasn't welcomed with open arms. She was typecast, boxed in, told again and again that she was too intense, too strong, too much. But Angela didn't shrink, she didn't water herself down just to make others comfortable. Instead, she kept showing up, audition after audition, training behind the scenes, and every time someone offered her a role that didn't respect her, she turned it down without hesitation. She wasn't here to play stereotypes. She was here to tell truths. So when she finally landed that breakout role as Tina Turner in What's Love Got to Do with It, that wasn't luck, that was grit. That was every scar, every no, every time she got overlooked, finally turning into a yes. Critics praised her fire and her presence, but they missed the deeper layer. That role wasn't just a career move, it was personal. This was a woman who had carried pain her whole life. Now she had a stage big enough to lay it down and turn it into art. Theater didn't erase her past, but it gave her a place to put it. A place that gave her dignity, strength, and a voice that didn't have to lie or hide. Angela didn't have to pretend things were fine. She used the truth. That was the real power she brought to every scene. Angela Bassett had already proved she had real talent, no question. But nothing could have prepared her for What's Love Got to Do with It. This wasn't just a breakout role. It was an emotional battlefield. The biopic demanded everything from her: voice, body, movement, and trauma, and it pushed her to the edge. The casting, total chaos. Whitney Houston had originally been lined up for the part, but dropped out last minute due to her pregnancy. Angela stepped in just weeks before filming started. No prep time, no vocal training. She had to learn how to lip sync to Tina Turner's voice and not just mouth the words, she had to breathe like her. Every sound, every growl, every unpredictable note had to be locked in. And that was just the beginning. Tina's voice is wild, raw, electric, impossible to pin down. Angela had to memorize the rhythm of pain, not just perform it, feel it. She wasn't simply acting like Tina Turner, she was stepping into her suffering. That meant reenacting scenes of brutal control, emotional breakdowns, and physical abuse over and over again for hours on end, scene after scene of heartbreak, manipulation, and complete vulnerability. This wasn't just a role, it was war on the soul. Man, Angela went all in. Angela admitted it. The filming schedule nearly broke her. She had full-on panic moments before rehearsals. Quiet breakdowns where she questioned herself like, is this role gonna ruin me? But even with all that doubt, she never backed out. She'd lace up those heels, pull that wig into place, and walk straight back into the fire. No fear on her face, but inside, it was a storm. And then came the real heat. Tina Turner herself. Tina didn't just co-sign the film, she showed up. Right there on set, watching, studying, sometimes just off camera, silently observing every move Angela made. At one point, Tina even did Angela's hair and makeup with her own hands. Then she looked her dead in the eye and said, now go up there and perform What's Love Got to Do with It, and I'm gonna sit right here and watch you. That moment hit hard. Angela didn't fold, but she definitely felt it. Tina was kind, even helpful, giving little tips, correcting a step, fixing a hair flip. But make no mistake, her presence was powerful. Angela wasn't just playing a legend, she was performing for the legend. The pressure was unreal, but Angela delivered. The public went wild. She snatched a Golden Globe, landed an Oscar nomination, and just like that, Angela Bassett became a household name overnight. But behind all the praise and shiny awards was something people didn't see. Pure exhaustion. That role nearly drained Angela to the core. What's Love Got to Do with It wasn't just her toughest role. It cracked open wounds she didn't even know were still there. Every time the script called for her to cry, scream, or fight, Angela wasn't just acting. She was reaching deep into her own pain. That childhood pain, the kind that lingers, no matter how far you run or how famous you become. There's a part of her performance the audience couldn't fully grasp, not unless they'd lived through it themselves. Angela wasn't just playing a survivor of abuse. She was stepping into that terrifying space of losing control, of having your body, your voice, and your sense of self stolen by someone else. That role didn't just challenge her, it possessed her. It wasn't acting. It was exorcism. Even when the camera stopped, the weight stuck around. Angela carried that emotional load long after the set went quiet. She later admitted it was the most demanding role she'd ever done, not because of the long hours, but because of what the story dug up. The vulnerability, the raw truth, and the chilling realization that some of Tina's darkest moments felt way too familiar. What's Love Got to Do with It turned Angela Bassett into a star. No question. But with all that fame came something way heavier. It brought her past roaring back to the surface. Everything she had spent a lifetime trying to bury, the pain, the fear, the silence, it all came flooding back. Yes, she earned respect. Yes, she became a household name, but none of that came for free. While the world saw the glamour, the red carpets, the magazine covers, Angela was carrying a private pain no one talked about. Behind the flash bulbs and big roles, she was in the middle of a heartbreaking struggle, one she kept entirely to herself. For 7 long years, she and her husband, Courtney B. Vance, tried to start a family. This wasn't just some wish, it was a deep personal mission. But instead of joy, They got disappointment after disappointment, and through it all, Angela stayed silent. No public breakdowns, no media confessionals, but behind closed doors, she was going through IVF treatments, cycle after cycle, hormone shots, early morning appointments, endless tests and check-ins, and every time the phone rang, the news was bad. The embryo didn't take, the procedure failed, the numbers didn't look good, over and over again. 7 years of heartbreak and 7 years of pretending like everything was just fine. Angela later admitted she'd stand in front of the mirror and ask herself the question that haunted her. Is something wrong with me? Is it my body? It was a silent war, one that nobody saw, but it nearly broke her. Angela Bassett was no stranger to hard work. She'd built her entire career on focus, discipline, and pushing through. But this was different. No amount of strength could force motherhood to happen. No role could prepare her for this kind of heartbreak. This wasn't a script she could control. Through it all, Courtney B. Vance never left her side. They leaned on faith, leaned on each other, and kept holding on even when it hurt. After years of trying, they made a decision that changed everything. They turned to surrogacy. For Angela, that wasn't easy. Letting go of control, handing over her dream to a stranger, that took a different kind of courage. She had to trust a process she couldn't lead. She had to have faith, raw, blind faith. And then on January 27th, 2006, it finally happened. Bronwyn and Slater were born, 2 beautiful twins. Angela called it her dream come true, but that dream was built on almost a decade of heartbreak, silence, and quiet suffering. People saw the red carpet glow-ups. They saw the smiling family photos. What they didn't see was the woman who spent years looking in the mirror, wondering if it would ever happen. And even after her babies arrived, the guilt stayed. Angela was still a working actress, bouncing from scripts to sets to press junkets, trying to balance motherhood with a career that never slowed down. The joy was real, but so was the pressure. Angela often finds herself caught between 2 worlds, career and motherhood, and that tug of war never really stops. In 2024, she opened up and admitted she still struggles with it. She worries about the long hours on set, the missed moments at home, but more than anything, she hopes her kids will one day understand the full picture. That their mother chased big dreams, that she worked nonstop, that she refused to let setbacks or pain define her worth. At home, Angela tries to set the vibe. She calls herself the good cop, while Courtney takes on the role of steady disciplinarian. Together, they find a balance. But the emotional weight of what it took to become a mother, that never really disappears. For Angela, motherhood wasn't handed to her. It wasn't instant or easy. It was earned through heartbreak, through faith, and through a level of strength most people never see. The scars from that journey, they're part of her now. When folks praise Angela as powerful, they don't always understand what that power is built on. It's not just talent or fame. It's the grit of surviving battles that happen far from the spotlight. Angela Bassett had always known how to survive in a world that didn't leave much space for women like her. But when she became a mother, especially a mother to Black children, that survival took on a whole new meaning. Everything shifted once Angela became a mom. The pressure wasn't just about success anymore, it was about protection. And it didn't take long for her to realize that even that wasn't something she could always control. Her twins, Bronwyn and Slater, were just 4 years old when they had their first brush with something no child should ever have to face: racial exclusion. Angela remembered it vividly, moments when other kids hesitated to play with them, not because of anything they said or did, but because they were Black. There were no slurs, no shouting, no obvious cruelty, but the message was still loud and clear. Angela called it color issues. At just 4 years old, her children were already being taught silently, subtly, who's accepted and who isn't. She did what most parents try to do. She explained it carefully. She told herself kids aren't born with hate. They learn it from what they see and hear. But knowing that didn't make it any easier. Angela was crushed, not shocked, and just deeply heartbroken. After all the years she spent fighting to open doors for Black women in entertainment, after the roles, the risks, the awards, none of it could shield her children from a world still stuck in the same patterns. She had worked so hard to change the narrative, but now she had to watch her kids face the very things she thought she'd helped tear down. Fighting racism in Hollywood is one thing, but trying to explain to a preschooler why they're being left out on the playground, that's a whole different kind of pain. Angela had to shift the way she parented. She started having deeper talks at home, real ones, conversations about self-worth, pride, and knowing exactly who you are, even when the world tries to tell you otherwise. She didn't make it dramatic. She made it routine, part of the daily armor her kids would need to carry with them. But no matter how strong she stayed for them, the guilt was always there. Working those long hours on set, missing school events, not being there in the moment when her kids were dealing with that quiet, subtle discrimination. And in a 2024 interview, she said it straight. She often feels torn between being fully present as a mom and continuing to chase the legacy she's poured decades into building. Still, Angela holds on to one truth, that there's power in her kids watching her do the work, watching a Black woman lead, create, and walk into rooms like she belongs there. She doesn't just want them to see the trophies, she wants them to see the effort, the grind, the resilience, because if they can understand that, then they'll know how to push forward, no matter what the world throws their way. Angela and Courtney didn't raise quiet kids, they raised strong ones, kids who speak up, who recognize injustice when they see it, and who walk through the world with pride in who they are. But even with all that strength, Angela still worries. Because the truth is, the world isn't always kind, especially to Black children who know their worth. For Angela, parenting was never just about hugs and guidance. It was about prepping her kids for a world she's seen up close, a world that can punish you just for being confident. Even with all her power, all her wisdom, being a mother has left her more exposed, more vulnerable than anything else. She's faced rejection before, she's been passed over in Hollywood, but nothing ever hit like the 2023 Oscars. Angela was nominated for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Critics praised her performance, fans rallied behind her, insiders whispered this was finally her moment, the one she deserved. She had done everything right. She carried that film with grace and gravity. Her performance wasn't just strong, it was soulful. She didn't play a role, she anchored an entire franchise. So when they opened that envelope, and the name wasn't hers, it was Jamie Lee Curtis, everything went quiet. Angela didn't fake a smile. She didn't clap out of habit. She didn't perform for the cameras. She sat there still, stunned. You could see it in her face, the weight, the shock, the exhaustion. That moment cut deep. The internet exploded. Some folks called Angela's reaction ungracious. Others said it was the realest moment of the night. But Angela Bassett, she didn't flinch, and she definitely didn't apologize. Later, she said it straight. I found it interesting that I wouldn't be allowed to be disappointed at an outcome where I thought I was deserving. That moment wasn't just about one gold statue. It was about everything that came before it. Decades of work, 2 Oscar nominations, and a legacy built on raw talent and undeniable excellence, only to be passed over again. When Angela sat in that chair, her kids by her side, it wasn't just about losing. It was about being snubbed again by a system that too often saves its biggest trophies for faces that don't look like hers. She'd seen it for years. She watched performers get praised for half the effort, for roles that didn't ask them to bleed, cry, or carry generational weight. She'd seen standing ovations handed out for work that didn't cut nearly as deep. Angela had poured everything into What's Love Got to Do with It, and now, with Wakanda Forever, she thought it was finally her time. She wasn't just another nominee. She was the first Marvel actor ever to be up for an Oscar, the face of a groundbreaking film, a role that shattered ceilings. Once again, Hollywood showed its cards. Critical praise doesn't always lead to real recognition. Angela handled the loss with class like she always does, but her children saw through the grace. They saw the pain behind the smile. They were supremely disappointed, she said, and in that moment, it turned into a teachable one. She told them, hold yourself, go to the parties with grace, keep one foot in front of the other. That was her way of protecting them, teaching them how to face disappointment without letting it define them. how to stay strong when the world gives you less than you deserve. But behind closed doors, Angela didn't sugarcoat it. This wasn't just some minor letdown, it cut deep, and it still does. Later, she told Oprah, "I was gobsmacked. It was a supreme disappointment." And disappointment? That's human. Angela wasn't being bitter, she was being honest. In an industry built on faking it, that kind of raw truth is rare. This loss wasn't about ego, it was about being seen. It was about decades of unmatched work being overlooked again. It was about showing up, giving everything, and still being told, not yet. Angela Bassett will go down as one of the greatest to ever do it, no doubt. But the missing Oscar, that's a quiet wound she carries, not because she needs the validation, but because she's earned the acknowledgement. And the world knows it. Angela Bassett never needed validation. She earned it. Every tear, every role, every setback, she carried it with fire. She's not just the character she plays. She's not just the awards they gave or didn't give. She didn't just act through the pain. She survived it. She broke through the silence, the rejections, the ceilings, and she's still standing. Now at 66, Angela is finally opening up, revealing pieces of her truth that most people never knew existed. And she's not doing it for sympathy. She's doing it because truth is power. And her truth, it's never been neat or easy. She was raised by people who cared, but couldn't always give her what she needed. She endured trauma in spaces that should have felt safe. She climbed an industry that kept shifting the finish line, and through all of it, she moved with grace. She loved her husband, she raised her kids, she delivered powerhouse performances that demanded her soul. That kind of strength doesn't come from fame, it comes from knowing what it costs to be overlooked, doubted, or told to wait your turn over and over again. Angela's story hits hard because it's bigger than her. It's every Black woman who had to make herself smaller just to make it through the day. Every woman who smiled and said, "I'm fine," while breaking inside. Every artist who poured everything out and still got told, "Not this time." And still, she rises. Angela Bassett's life is a reflection of the pain so many carry in silence, the strength we're forced to fake, and the dignity we fight to hold on to, even when the world tries to strip it away. She doesn't need to explain herself anymore. Her legacy, it's already locked in, but her story, that still needs to be told, because the real tragedy isn't what Angela went through, it's how long it took for people to finally start paying attention.